Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Welcome back.
It's great to be back.
How you been?
I've been pretty good, alhamdulillah.
It's always good to see you.
Praise be to God.
I had a kind of a spontaneous, fortuitous meeting with a young brother from Detroit. And I thought it would really be impactful that we discuss a few of the things that I had discussed with him. And this is a young brother. It kind of relates to my story, coming up and seeing the kind of things in life that I was living, that he's living now and getting out of it. He's having like an awakening. He's experiencing the fruits of Iman when you start to see purpose. But the one thing in particular that he had mentioned is now he wanted to find a masjid to go to. The one masjid that he went to, he was asking questions. He said they're very
rigid in there.
Very rigid, and he was asking about prayer. He's slowly getting into prayer. He's not praying 5 times a day. He's kind of off and on, right? And he said, look, if you miss one prayer, you're damned for the hell. He said, they said, and that really scared him. He said, I want to love God. I want to, and he scared the kahuzos out of me. Then I went to he called a Bosnian mosque, and the guy said, oh, you don't have to pray 5 times a day. If you go to Jummah, from one Jummah to the next, it wipes away your sins.
So this is the problem. We have this polarization. We have these two extremes going on. And what's really important for people to understand is everyone, Allah, we have to understand, how does Allah deal with people? How is He going to judge people? And our example that we learned from is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. How did he deal with different people? He didn't all of a sudden, when the first companions, when they accepted Islam, he didn't all of a sudden throw everything on them and you're like, you know what? Oh, you're engaging in interest? Oh, you're still drinking? Oh, you're doing this? Oh, you got a girlfriend? Oh, you did some prostitution? You got to get out all of this stuff, otherwise you're going straight to hell. This was not the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, dealt with people. He understood people's circumstances. He understood their backgrounds. He knew where they're coming from, and he used to speak to them in that manner. And what happens is that people, they see things in black and white. Someone enters into Islam, someone accepts Islam, or someone wants to come back to Islam after all these years of being in darkness, being very far, doing some really stuff that they're going to regret later on. We need to deal with them according to their capacity. So if someone is not praying at all, you throw all 5 prayers on them and tell them if you don't do it, you're going to go to hell. Not everyone is motivated that way, right? So the thing is, we need to go back to the Qur'an. We need to go back to the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, did. And you got to give good news, and you got to give a little bit of a warning too. And that's where the balance really lies. So you tell someone, you know what? You're not praying 5 times a day. You're not praying at all. Okay, start with 1. Build it up from there. Try do 1, do 2, do what you think you can. If you can do 3, you can do 4, okay, keep it consistent for a while. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he actually encouraged people. He said that the most beloved actions to Allah are those which are done consistently, even if they be few in number. So consistency is the key. So the thing is, if this guy is not praying, or he just started praying once or twice or something like that, let him get consistent in 2 and then build up from there. Let him get consistent in 4 and then build up from there. But if you put too much pressure on somebody and you tell them, you know what, you put all the rules on them, that's going to mess them up. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people do is, as soon as they take Shahada, they declare their Islam, they say, La ilaha illallah, I believe that there's only one God, I'm a Muslim now. They say, okay, you know what? By the way, the next prayer is going to be done in 2 hours. You need to memorize Surah Fatiha, you need to memorize At-Tahiyyat, you need to memorize everything in Arabic, you need to know all the prayers by the time the next prayer is done. That's not true. That's not the way that Allah deals with people. Allah deals with people according to their capacity and their circumstances. Nobody is going to be able to memorize all the prayer stuff in a few hours. Nobody's going to be able to adjust all of a sudden. It takes time. And we need to deal with people in that manner. So this is the problem. The problem that people in different masjids, what they do is they don't look at the individuals and speak to them on a direct level. They need to look at them and say, what is the circumstances of this person? Where are they coming from? What are they capable of? And how can I support them? That's the key. We need to support them and give them good advice with wisdom and advise them in that manner.
So even in a unique situation where the person is bound to go to the club, they're bound to go. You're not changing their mind.
That's it.
So at least pray before you go.
Absolutely.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's the way.
Not that you're condoning them going and drinking, but holding on to something of the thing.
I'll tell you from just my own experience. I wasn't always practicing. I used to go to raves, And I remember the one thing I used to do, very weird, I used to actually pray at a rave, right? And that's the one thing I remember. And when I look back on it, I say, you know what? That might have been the one thing that kind of helped me come back to Islam. That I used to remember Allah, like for a moment I would stop and I say, you know what? Am I doing this right thing? You know what? Let me at least remember Allah. Even though I'm in a bad place, I shouldn't be here. Let me at least just think about prayer a little bit. And I think that really did have an effect on me. So we should encourage people, you know, if you're going to go anyways, you're doing some haram, at least do something good in the meantime. Instead of calling them hypocrites and all that, encourage them. And that just may be the catalyst that will actually change them, bring them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's actually what saved me, was that prayer. And even leaving, that's interesting, you mentioned the rave. I would leave the after party and go pray. It was like around that time, and I go pray Fajr in the car. Eventually I left. Or you kind of, because people get stuck between two worlds, right? Chasing that life, and then it takes time to transition into this way of life. And I remember I would go back and I would experience, and I'm explaining to him, that good feeling of connecting with your Creator, of doing the ibadah, the worship, and being around good people. Then you kind of go back, you think you're missing something. And I remember going back and again, it's like God sending you a sign, and me getting stuck in an elevator. And I'm like, oh man, what am I here? I came back here and I'm stuck. It's like, oh man. Then I start thinking about the grave. When I'm stuck 6 feet under, right?
Absolutely.
You don't get a second chance.
Absolutely.
But it was that prayer. It was holding on to something that finally got me out.
That's and see, we need to encourage people. A lot of people, they'll discourage them thinking that it's going to encourage them. But the vast majority of people, they're not going to be motivated by harsh criticism. So if someone's going and doing some clubbing and then they're doing some prayer, then tell them, do a little bit extra prayer. It might help you. It might help you get through all of this. But instead, a lot of people will go and say the opposite. They'll be like, you know what kind of hypocrite are you? What's the point of praying if you're going to go there? Thinking that all of a sudden that statement is going to get them to wake up and stop going to the club and just start praying. But that's not the way people are motivated generally. Very few people are motivated with really, really harsh criticism. So the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to deal with people, he knew who he was speaking with. So every individual was different. If he saw that there was someone who you need to be really tough on him and he's going to change, he would do that. But there are many people out there, you go really tough on them and you're just going to alienate them. You're just going to go away and say, oh, well, forget this. If you're saying I'm useless, you're saying I'm just worthless, okay, fine, I am useless, I am worthless, forget all of it. Our goal is to look at people, and especially in today's society, in our culture, people struggling with all these things, we need to understand their struggles and let them know that, you're not alone, we're here, Allah is there, connect with Him, and you take a few steps, and Allah's going to come even closer to you. That's the key.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be right back with more here on the Deen Show. Back here on the Deen Show, giving a real live example, someone that I had just connected with. And inshallah, the brother sees this program and gets more encouraged.
Inshallah.
He knows who he is, and we're discussing someone who I had a great sit down with. He also had a female companion. And we were, sometimes you in your journey, you have others that are with you in that journey, and I got to talking with that person. Before I get to that, it reminded me of what you said about gauging who you're talking with. And sometimes the tough approach, sometimes depending on who the person is, a little bit more like, that reminded me of Ibn Taymiyyah, where he had a statement talking about sometimes when you have a rough stain on you and you go a little bit rougher, it's not that you're trying to hurt yourself, right? It's just you need a little bit more, a struggle to get that out.
Exactly. Yeah.
So can we equate that with some?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely applies. Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you now? What kind of advice would you give to a person who's coming over? But there are certain things. We obviously know the prayer. The first thing is to establish that direct connection with your Creator. The other thing is that obviously there is the 5 daily prayers, right? And not doing them when you want. Gauging. How do you now? What do you usually tell people? Then maybe a person has a girlfriend. Maybe that person, how do you motivate them? What words of encouragement do you like to kind of help to facilitate change, to help facilitate them moving towards, the correct path?
What I tell them, they need to focus on the priorities, and they need to understand what their priorities are. So the first and most important priority is having a clear understanding of that we have a purpose in this life. Understanding that the Qur'an is the word of God. Understanding that God sent us revelation, and how we, understand this message, how we get some of the doubts out, how we get a clear understanding that we're not just here to just have fun. There's a purpose to our life. That's the first thing, right? Once that becomes clear, if someone's struggling with, accepting all of that, they should start asking questions. They should start reading some things about some confusions they had or whatever it may be. Once they got that down, their belief in Allah is firm, their belief in God is clear, their belief in the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is clear. Now they start moving to, okay, how do I connect with my Creator? Okay, I'm going to start praying. Okay, but I'm not just going to do formulaic prayer. I want to connect with God. So tell them, start understanding the meaning of prayer. Start understanding the deeper dimensions, the inner dimensions of what prayer is going to do, because that's going to have an effect on you. If you just say the words only, you still took some time out of your life. Inshallah, you fulfilled the obligation of prayer, but the amount of benefit that you get is not going to be at the same level, right? So what you want to do, the priorities, once you've got the faith down, the basics of belief down, then you want to do the most important actions. The most important actions are things like the 5 pillars of Islam, which prayer is one of them. Prayer, fasting, giving your zakah, and going for pilgrimage, when you're able to go. And then staying away from things which are 100% clear-cut prohibited in Islam. And what you got to do is you got to focus on the things that you can start doing now. So you got a girlfriend? Okay. It's hard for you to let go of her? Okay. Can you talk to her? Can you convince her, why don't you consider Islam? Maybe this will be a great opportunity. Or, if you consider marrying her, talk to her family, talk to her parents, and ask yourself, are you ready to get married? Are you ready to get married? Are you actually, you have the potential to get married right now, or you don't? And then you start analyzing the wisdom behind, well, why is this prohibited in the first place? There's got to be some wisdom behind it. So when you understand why Allah instituted marriage, and why He prohibited having relationships outside, the more you reflect upon it, the more you understand that a relationship was supposed to have a serious commitment. And that commitment is defined through the institution of marriage. I'm going to take this very seriously. Some kids are produced to this, I'm going to take it seriously. My responsibility towards my spouse, it's going to be very serious, right? That's what marriage is about. So when you understand the wisdom behind that, now you're like, it's not just like, I want to have a girlfriend, I really like this girl, and I know Allah tells me not to, but I still want to do it. Now your mentality starts to change. And you say, I see the wisdom behind why Allah is telling us to do this. I'm struggling between following my desires and doing what Allah is telling me to do, even though I know it's for my own good. Now I understand it. Now you can actually face that challenge a lot easier. It's like telling someone, brother, your health is, you're in really bad shape. You need to start eating better. You need to start eating, healthier food. You need to do some exercise. But they don't understand the health the health problems that can arise from it. Once you explain to them, that type 2 diabetes that you have, it can be reversed if you just change your diet. All the problems and all the issues that you're having health-wise, whatever's going on, a lot of it has to do with your health. If you just make a change, it can potentially solve all these problems. Now that person is more motivated. It's not just about, we should take care of our bodies because Allah said so. Now it's like, now I see the greater wisdom behind it. So one of the things I encourage people to do is the areas that they're struggling in, once they identify what are the priorities in Islam, what to focus on first, right? And after you got that down, start to analyze the wisdom behind everything, because it's going to help you through that challenge, right? So if you're not praying at all, right, start praying before you say, I'm going to go to the masjid for every single prayer. Yeah, it's maybe a 30-minute drive to your local mosque. Maybe it's 20 minutes, whatever it is. Start by going once or twice or something like that, once a day, and start by getting in every single one of your prayers. In the month of Ramadan, if you can't fast all the days in Ramadan, start with a few and build up from there. Understand the benefits of fasting for your own self-control, your own self-discipline, even your health benefits, and now you become more inclined, I can do this, or I need to do this, even if I don't feel like it. And that's really what I advise people to do. They need to focus on these things.
What are some of the consequences of not taking this seriously and neglecting these your primary purpose in life?
I mean, the most important consequences are after-worldly consequences. I mean, see, God, we have to go back to the basic principle. God created us for a purpose. There's a reason why we're here. And we have a responsibility. Life is a test. It's just simply, that's just the way it is. That's the way Allah set it up, and there's a wisdom in that. If you mess up on the test because you were lazy, because you didn't want to study, because you were distracted, you're not going to be able to pass that test. and there's very serious consequences for that, right? So Allah's going to hold us accountable for every single thing that we believed right or wrong, and every single thing that we did, good or bad, right? He's merciful, but He's also just, right? So we need to make sure that we're not, we're not excusing ourselves. It's very easy to make excuses for ourselves and not make excuses for other people, and it's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to make excuses for other people because you're not going to be held accountable for what on the day of judgment for what they're doing. But you shouldn't make excuses for yourself. You should always look and see, are my intentions correct? Am I really doing what I can to my maximum capacity? There are some Muslims who, some people accept Islam, and I tell them, I'm like, just take it slow and be consistent in everything. And then I see them like 5 years later, 10 years later, and I'm like, so how are things? How are the prayer and everything? They haven't even learned how to pray yet.
Still in first grade.
Still in kindergarten, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still praying. It's, oh yeah, I pray like, once or twice a day. I'm like, when I gave you that advice, take it slow. I mean this slow, like
you wouldn't take it slow with all the other things in life.
Oh, of course
why
not.
with this?
Yeah. You don't walk into a college, a 4-year college, to say, 20
years.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. You take it very seriously because you value it. You realize the consequences of not being up to par here. We got to realize the consequences of what's going to happen. We got to be up to par. There's a schedule. Some people take a month. Some people take a few months. Here and there. It's always a struggle. Everybody struggles. But the struggle is never more than you can handle. Allah promises us in the Qur'an is that He will not test any soul or any person more than they can bear. So whatever struggle we're going through, we can handle it. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Well, we can do it. You take it slow, but you be consistent, and you make sure that you're not over excusing yourself and just being lazy. You want to make sure you're doing it to the best of your ability.
Beautiful. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum. Back here on the Deen Show, I want to take a little turn now and talk about something that's been real dear to you. You've been talking lately a lot about some of the forgotten people who maybe made a mistake in life. We all make mistakes, some more than others. And we have one who's the most merciful, the most loving. People change their ways.
Absolutely.
Tell me about this awareness that you are trying to create with the people who've made a mistake and they're stuck and reaching out in some of the prisons.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of people who are in prison, and a lot of them are Muslim. What we need to realize is the Muslim population in prison is 15% of the entire prison population. I mean, that's more than double of what the American Muslim population is. So people know what Islam is in jail. We're looking at about 40,000 people every year accepting Islam in prisons across the United States of America. 40,000.
40,000.
40,000. It's a very significant number, and that's probably a little bit of a lowball number as well, right? So a lot of people are accepting Islam in prison. So they've done something, they made a mistake, somehow they got into prison, they got caught, or some, probably a lot of people commit crimes. Not everyone even gets caught. There's a lot of discrimination going on there as well. When they got in there, some people make mistakes of this way in life, some people make mistakes that way. They're stuck, and what happens is they're oftentimes forgotten. Our brothers and sisters are oftentimes stuck there, and I get letters, handwritten letters. Most people don't get handwritten letters at all.
Yeah.
We got emails being sent, text messages being sent. Almost nobody really writes a letter by hand anymore. On a daily basis, I'm getting mail in our mosque with our Link Outside program, which is a prison outreach program. Every single day I'm getting letters requesting, basically saying, Sheikh Mustafa, I heard about your prison outreach program. I want to tell you my story. And they tell me the story about how they got into prison, and how there's absolutely nobody to help them at all. They're requesting, can someone send me a copy of the Qur'an? Just something basic like that, saying, what, Ramadan is coming. I can't even tell what time we're supposed to be starting our fasting, because I don't know. We don't have a clock. We don't have any guidance. We don't have any scholars here to help us. There are some chaplains, in some prisons and all of that, but not up to par. They have no access to knowledge. They have none of these things. And the thing is, these people have been forgotten. And when they send these letters to different masjids, unfortunately, the vast majority of the Islamic centers, they don't respond because they're just not good at responding to their voicemail, or they don't have a secretary working there or something like that. So I get calls from all around the country. I get calls from different cities, non-Muslims calling me and saying, we got some Muslim prisoners here. We heard you guys respond. Can you do something? So we said, we got to do something. So we have this program where we say, okay, you know what? Let's get them some literature. Let's get him some copies of the Qur'an. Let's get him some books. And these people, mashallah, they devour Islamic books like anything. They ask for a translation of the Qur'an, then they go, I'm done with that. We send him a copy of tafsir, explanation of the Qur'an. We give him books on hadith. We give him books on Islamic law. They just keep reading everything and say, can you send me more and more and more? So we just keep on sending them more and more literature. We started with our California Islamic University a correspondence program. Said, you know what? Let them take some classes while they're on the inside. It's being called being on the inside, right? Send them some classes. These are 11-week courses that we teach, university style format. I send them a course packet. They're done in 1 week, and they send it back and say, we're ready for the next course. You know, so I mean, these are people who are dead. I mean, they're serious. They made a mistake 30 years ago. Yeah. Right? And now they're stuck, and there's nothing that they can do about it.
So you're either going to graduate in prison at becoming a better criminal, maybe a better bank robber, better swindler, whatever the case. And many people, they end up coming out far worse. But this is a great initiative, because with Islam, if you want to decrease the crime rate, if you want people coming out with better character, being an asset to society, then
exactly, and that's what statistics show. They show that there's a 75% rate of recidivism, which basically means people who get released from prison, they get back into prison within 5 years. 75% is the statistic.
Wow.
And they said the people who generally don't fall in there, the other 25%, it's because of the strong education they received while they were in prison. So education plays a big role, and that's just, they're talking about secular education. Imagine what Islamic education can do for them. It'll revolutionize their lives, and it revolutionizes the lives of people around them. That's why people are accepting Islam. You know, there's not a bunch of missionaries going into the prisons and saying, you know, here's some pamphlets to learn about Islam. It's the inmates themselves who are going and telling everyone about, you know what, look at this, Islam is going to change your life. You need this. And people accept.
So there's somebody out there that said, no, you're just making more terrorists.
No, that's...
There's a troll. There's a few trolls.
There's
what
trolls.
Do you say?
I try not to feed the trolls always, you know, but yeah, there are people saying that if you look at the principles of Islam and you look at the effects, ask any prison warden, ask anyone who's actually in the prison system, they'll say the best behaved people in prison are the Muslims. The most organized, the most spiritual, the people who do the best for the entire prison, they're the Muslims. You got gangs in there, you got people dealing drugs in there, you got all sorts of riots, all sorts of things going on. The people who avoid that, because it's a very cliquish thing, it's like different groups in prison. Yeah. If you're part of the Muslim group, they're like, these are the best behaved people. These are the nicest people. These are the people who've reformed themselves, right? And they have a reputation for that. You don't mess with the Muslim either, because these are straight people. They don't want to play around. They're not going to do no drugs. They're not going to sell no alcohol. They're not going to, you know, cause problems or anything like that. They're here to worship. They're here to change their life. They're disciplined people. And that's why they're attracted to Islam in prison. Because they're like, you know what? They realize, I don't want to be like, I don't want to become like an animal. You know, I don't want to be just living my life like this. I did that once. I did that twice. I got caught. Now I'm here. It's time to make a change. And they see Islam makes that change. So anyone who wants to challenge it, just look at the effects of Muslims in prison. That's what really changes people. That's what changed Malcolm X. That's what changed, you know, countless thousands of other people. And that's what changes Muslims who come out now. You can listen to their stories and see exactly what difference it made in their life.
In the last 30 seconds we have, how can people get involved in helping out?
We have a website called linkoutside.com. So they can check out, they can volunteer, they can help write. We have pen pal correspondence. You know, we need donations to send them literature and all of that. The average inmate minimum wage is 14 cents an hour. So they can't even afford any books, right? Oftentimes they need we need all the resources we can get. So check out our website, linkoutside.com. If you can volunteer, if you can spread the word, if you can donate, if you can help in any capacity, it would be a great thing.
Always a pleasure having you in the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.